That voice is always so scary.
Continue. Okay, so we have Kathy. We have the dancing team. Hold on. We got a dancing team, and we've got some banjo players. We're gonna go backwards, just so you know. Anita is our presenter today as well. Okay. Do
Ready?
it. Do it. And everybody mute yourselves if you can, so you don't interrupt this like me.
Well, it's the end of the week. Where have you been? Now it's Feedback Friday, so come on in.
2, 3, 4.
Come sit down and stare at your screen.
We've got a presenter that you've never seen.
With Feedback Friday, we're on the loose.
We'll be the train if you'll be the caboose. It's Feedback Friday with Amy and Bree. So have you ever seen two things so sweet? It's Feedback Friday all day long. Feedback, feedback, feedback Friday.
Oh my God!
We get dancers. This is great.
Yeah, that's Kathy, who's usually here.
Aww.
Kathy's teaching.
Look at you cuties. That's so
down
fun.
in Milwaukee, Tennessee.
Anita, so good to see you. We're going to
So
mute
good to see
ourselves because
you.
we're kind of still in class, but we just wanted to drop in and say howdy hi from
That's
Tennessee
amazing.
at Shake
I'm
Break.
like upside down now from all this. What am I even gonna? How am I gonna pull all this together? Okay, listen.
You can do it, Amy.
That was amazing. Okay, we got Kathy in class. Thank you, Sam.
Thanks, Sam.
Sam.
Oh my God. Okay. Let's start at the beginning. What just happened? Okay. We are at episode 60 today of Feedback Friday. Episode 60. That's how old Brees is. And now she hates me. And let's see. This is our weekly show where we speak with dyers, artists, scientists, writers, anybody who wants to talk with us, banjo players. I'm Amy Dufault. I am the Sustainability and Communications Director for Botanical Colors alongside Brees Honeycutt, my friend, my comrade, textile artist, natural dyer, amazing human. We are together doing this today because, yes, Kathy's in Tennessee. Today we have Anita Cazzola, who's also, yes, a banjo player, and we do have links to her music on her website. She's a really great musician. And the three of us were all at Haystack Mountain School of Crafts together, and that's how we all met. And Anita's beautiful too. So Anita's going to tell us more about her Botanical Reclamation project she just launched, which celebrates the resiliency of wild plants through naturally dyed textiles. The project also offers her community a chance to learn about local plant life and the natural dye process through things like self-guided walks, weekly scavenger hunts, and artist talks with the help of various project partners and collaborators. Before we start, I want to thank you all so much for showing up every Friday. There's so many of you that do, and we really appreciate it. For a little housekeeping, Brees we didn't flip the coin or the Coreopsis flower about monitoring the chat, but I'll do it. I'll just take the questions. It'll be fine because we're just winging everything today, it looks like. And we have everyone muted until the end where we'll unmute and everybody can say hi. And then don't forget to stay for picture of the week.
Week.
Yes.
Week.
Yeah.
Week.
That didn't go as planned, but it's a good one today too. All right, this call is being recorded. We'll have a video copy up by Sunday, and we're just gonna go right into Anita Cazzola.
Thank you, Amy. I want you to sing my theme song. Make up and sing my theme song.
For right now?
Not right now. Just in the future.
I'll make it up later and I'll sing it to you.
Okay. Thank you. I'm going to share my, well, no, before I share my screen, hello, everyone. I'm so happy to be here sharing thoughts and ideas with you all. I've been at several of these Feedback Friday events, and it's always so nice to be in community with fellow artists and dyers and craftspeople. And I'm just so appreciative to Amy and Kathy and Brees and everyone for doing this for the past 60 weeks. It's totally, totally amazing. Okay, I'm going to share my screen now. You are seeing that. All right, here we are. Just going to get things moved around on this screen. Okay, I'm going to talk about this botanical reclamation project that I started last summer. It, as Amy beautifully introduced, it's a project that really tries to give a voice to wild plants that have reclaimed spaces that have been mistreated or undervalued in the city. I'm from Guelph, Ontario, on the traditional lands of the Mississaugas of the New Credit. And I'm going to just give you a little bit of a tour into this project. And for those of you who are also in the Guelph community tuning in today, this is sort of like a welcome to the residency sort of presentation. So I'm first going to talk about sad spaces, because this term it's more of an artistic term than a literal term, but I've been so fascinated with spaces that have been just totally turned around by human action or development or just destructive behavior. And the thing that I love so much about sad spaces is that they're not actually very sad, because so much energy gets put in by the natural world to transform them into something else. So I'm just going to read a little bit of a definition, a working definition for a sad space. A sad space is a natural space that has experienced severe human-inflicted environmental disruption, but has begun a return to a natural state through the reintroduction of indigenous and native plant species. They are spaces of transition, of loss, regeneration, and transiency. They can be abandoned or decommissioned parking lots, quarries, dumps, industrial sites, as well as roadsides and median strips. If left alone for enough time, wild plants can reclaim these sites and kindle new hope. And so as I'm interacting with these sites, it's amazing to see what can happen by just the strong will of the natural world. And I'm just going to give you an example of a sad space. And this is like the main space that I have been working with so far. It's in this beautiful triangle here. And this is an old quarry in Guelph, right near where I live. And the quarry used to extend far beyond, sort of in this triangular space, continuing on. And since then, things have been developed all around it, but this little patch remains sort of a bit untouched and undeveloped thus far. There are plans for development here now, but since I live so close, I was walking through this space a lot last summer and just noticing ways in which, you know, there are piles of asphalt and concrete everywhere, but plants are still finding a way. And even from this aerial view, you can see these marks made by human action, but then they're getting kind of blurred and erased again by the introduction of plant species and sort of like oh, I'm thinking of a word and I have lost it now, but this sort of softening of the like hard destructive lines of human presence on this space. And I've kind of been brought back to this idea a lot over the course of my still short art practice. And this is a site in Toronto, Ontario, called the Leslie Spit. And this was a site of keen observation for me several years ago. And it's this sort of concrete and asphalt dumping ground. And throughout time, this asphalt and concrete is dumped sort of into this spit into the lake. And throughout time, water and wind has eroded these forms into these soft, beautiful shapes. And I just think it's such a magnificent way to see how the natural world is softening these hard lines. And I'm fascinated by that, and the intersection between the grid and the natural world, and how the grid gets softened all the time by natural processes. This is just a little nod to the work I was making there. It was a naturally dyed double ECAT length of fabric that I made and installed on the site, and dipped the end of this into the water and kind of let the dye wash away a little bit. The pH was really altered, so it was kind of brought back to its yellow. It's a turmeric dye with a lot of baking soda. This was like before I knew anything about natural dyes, but it was an attempt, and just trying to mimic this erosion that's happening on the site. And so bringing it back to these sad spaces that I'm looking at now, I'm thinking of growth as softening. And this process, again, is totally led by the natural world. But yes, thinking about growth as softening. I'm gonna give you a little glimpse into some of the plants that I've been working with. And these photos were taken this spring, as I was kind of revisiting the plants that I was working with, and really trying to get a better sense of what do these look like in the spring when they're first starting out, and how can we recognize these early so that we can say like, oh, hello, look, this is a dye plant and we should keep this around. So here's some beautiful goldenrod coming up, willow starting again. In this quarry site that I'm working in, trees were clear cut en masse, and they're coming back in more of like a shrub form, which is honestly so beautiful. And like this multiplying of the trees through regrowth has been very cool to see. Some nice rudbeckia, the dried cone, and new leaves coming up. St. John's wort, one of my favorites. And look at this beautiful pink coming up. There's got to be some dye happening in there. And some yarrow, just a few examples of this new life and this softening from this gray winter into green of summer and spring. And so here's what it looks like in the middle of the summer. And this is what I saw when I was first interacting with the site, is just this like magnificent burst of life and color, and just so exciting. And I was thinking about, what do I do with this? Like, I know these are dye plants, a lot of them. So, and I'm just so amazed at the action and the rigor of these plants to grow from almost nothing. And so you know, here I am just with picking a bouquet of them, and I brought them home often. And then I was just thinking, okay, I have to do something more than just have a bouquet of flowers in my house. So I'm going to dye with them. So here are the first two plants that I was working with, Rudbeckia and St. John's wort. And as soon as I started, I knew I just had to keep trying things and just keep trying to infuse the plant's voice and effort into something that we can see, sort of a rematerialization of the power and essence of these plants. So I'll go through some of the plants that I was working with again, and more of like the dye result from it. So this is our beautiful friend goldenrod, harvested in the fall. And I used quite a bit of fresh flowers for this, and it took very quickly and was so bright and magnificent. It was a very fun thing to try. Willow was also a really interesting one to work with, because there was some oxidization happening, and happy to open this up later on to talk about oxidization in dye processes, because I still don't know very much about how that works chemically. But when the fabrics were taken out of the dye bath, they darkened like quite a bit, like visibly. I could just watch them getting darker, which was so interesting. And initially I also thought that the willow bark was the thing that would have the color in it. So I meticulously stripped all of the willow bark off of the branches and had this pile of leaves sitting there, and I was left with this sort of measly pile of willow bark. And I was thinking, okay, I'll try this, but I'll also put all of the willow leaves into a pot and just see what happens there. And the willow leaves are really what gave the gift of color. So this sort of beige color here is what was happening with the willow bark. But then, as you can see, willow leaves had way more power, which was so cool to see. Again, a little closer look at Rudbeckia. Closer look at St. John's wort. Some really amazing stuff happening on the protein fibers over here. This is silk, and this is wool here. This is a silk and nettle blend, and then these are cottons and linens here. And yarrow as well, our little gentle friend, a very medicinal plant as well. Really just so beautiful. And I was just so humbled by all of these colors too. I wanted to talk about sumac as well, because thanks to Kathy and Amy and Brees at Haystack, I learned more about tannins and their potential to be used as mordants. So with this project, I really wanted to try to have totally local color, even in the mordant. So I mordanted the cellulose fibers, so linens, cottons, etc., hemp, with first some sumac leaves, and then an afterbath of alum and soda ash. And thankfully, there's some documentation on that on the Botanical Colors website. And then, so that was done in the summer, and then in the fall was an experiment with the staghorn sumac berries themselves. And I was really excited about all of the variation happening from these sumac berries as well. Like these are my sort of protein fibers over here. The wool is so brown, and the silks are so kind of rusty orange, and then the cellulose fibers are so gentle and pink and rosy, and it was a really fun one to try out as well. And then I finally got to the point where I was thinking about, okay, what do I do with this now? All of these colors are so beautiful together, and I thought about this idea of putting them together into this patchwork flag. And you can kind of see the finished one behind me here. And so I was just amazed by the palette. And this is the thing about natural dyes, they always look good together. And I think it's just a matter of, plants give so much, and they have to live in so much harmony with each other in order to support themselves and the ecosystem at large. So it's it feels really beautiful to see the colors and how those work together so well and create a palette that is so pleasing to the eye, to the human eye. I wanted to talk as well about lake pigments, which hopefully some folks have had a chance to explore this already, but during the process, after I was finished dyeing these textiles, I made lake pigments out of the remaining dye bath, and had a nice palette extension again, now with paint. And I got to go back to painting, which was so much fun. So if you haven't tried this out, I would really recommend exploring the world of lake pigments as a way of extending the life of the plants and the water that are used in the natural dye process. And another way that I started to experiment with palette extension is with iron over dyes. I'll leave this slide, my notes of what everything was, but this was a very exciting day to over dye all of these little sampled bits with iron and see how the palette gets extended so much. And the iron that I used was actually from railway spikes that I took from the site, and stuck them in some vinegar and water and created an iron solution in that way. Again, trying to locally harvested color in as many aspects of this as I can. And finally, here's the finished, what I'm calling a flag for the plants. And I'm really interested in this language of flags. They opposing things. And I've always been very interested in polarities. Flags, they can signify a warning as well as a celebration, resistance as well as solidarity, and dominance as well as subordination. And so all of these things were sitting with me as I was putting all of this together into a flag. And in this case, term is this sort of reclamation of the space. So totally sort of assistance to help them, saying, hello, actually, we want to be here, and we are working together to reclaim this space, and we are so powerful in our wonderful, gentle ways. Here's a little bit more of the flag on the site in November. And I'm really, really excited to continue making this sort of work with different spaces around Guelph, and especially to have community interaction. And I guess in some ways, thanks to the pandemic, my residency is going to be, a lot of it's going to be online as well. So there will be some opportunities to learn from afar. But if you are close by, you're welcome to come and enjoy some installations and some little pigment painting setups. And I always like to have reference resource books available to kind of just help everyone dive into this world and interact with wild spaces in a new way, and sort of think about different ways of being wild, and what does interacting with a wild space look like, and how can we change that, and think about resilience in new ways, especially as we're making our way out of the pandemic. I think there's a lot that we can learn from spaces like this, in just reminding ourselves that we can regenerate, and even if it feels like we've been very decimated. So I really hope that this project can bring some light and hope into this time. And as a human myself, I'm kind of like not even sure if I am up for doing that all of the time, but I really hope that in little ways it can help us all, just find some softness again. And here's some little things that I'll be doing over the summer. Some virtual plant walks, announcing a dye plant of the week that you can find in your own neighborhood, and learn to identify, and just learn to realize that there's color everywhere underneath and within these plants. I'll be doing some process live streams, just some really quiet ways to interact with the project. And there's an online archive website that will have a lot of information on the experiments that I've done, and some artists and community talks like this one. And so you're just welcome to follow along and share insights and ideas. And I'm so excited to keep working on this thing. And thank you so much for listening to these ideas, and I hope they resonated with you.
Thanks, Anita. I don't know where to begin. It was just like we were just hearing poetry. Yes, clap for Anita. We've opened up the chat if you want to start asking some questions for Anita, which we'll just dive in. So Leslie's asking, do you also remove plants that are not natural to the area? And do you have people that also contribute to your project?
Sorry, was it removing plants that are not natural to the area?
Maybe not native to the area?
Okay, sorry, I just didn't quite hear you, but yes, I'm really interested in the idea of an invasive species, and I think that there definitely is a requirement in some ways to control these species in some ways, even though I also think that they're kind of awesome in other ways, because they can be like the initiators of kind of allowing life to resume on us in a space. But I'm really excited to try and work with some of those, especially because they are in abundance. And with any plants that I'm working with, I want to make sure that they are very abundant, so I'm not, affecting their presence and their continuation on the site. So invasives are definitely ones that, will be extra resilient in that way.
Yeah, it'd be cool too to do something with like Bat Flower Press. They do a lot of work with invasive species to make paper, and then you buy the paper. That might be interesting too.
Yeah, ooh, that'd be so cool. Yeah, I'm especially excited to work with buckthorn. It's very like the common European buckthorn, not sea buckthorn. It's very prevalent in this area, and apparently a lot of colors can be harvested from just that one plant. So that'll be something I'm for sure doing.
Let's see. Breeze Honeycutt's asking, will you make a herbarium, a dried plant record of the place?
I would love to do that. I've started that a little bit and would like to continue. There are so many like side split projects that I want to do with this, but I would really like to do that and like scan those dried plants and print with them, do some seed saving, and like maybe establish some kind of a dye garden somewhere with these plants. Again, the invasive element will be something to think about, but yeah, I have so many ways in which I want to celebrate these, not just through naturally dyed textiles.
Mhm. Hello from Suffolk, UK, an inspirational presentation. Do you take your project artist in residency work into local schools and encourage children to become involved?
This is something that I would love to do. I'm working with the Guelph Outdoor School here. It's an amazing sort of alternative school, outdoors, and we're going to be doing a dye workshop together once restrictions are a little bit less intensive in Canada. Anyway, it's a little bit slower than maybe other places around. It's like amazing to see Kathy indoors with a group of people. I'm just like, what? That's happening. But yes, I really would love to continue this into schools, and yeah, get a lot of different generations of people interacting with this.
I don't know if I'm going to say this right. I hate when I don't know how to say it properly. Okay, are your flags made using the bojagi quilt technique? Am I saying it right, you guys? Bojagi.
I think that's, I'm not sure if it, I don't know.
Good. I'm glad.
That's like the like Korean patchwork method, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah. It's I guess it is sort of like that. I would really like to do more research into that, the tradition of that method, but this was a little bit more of just like an improvised patchwork with no, like, not having a back on the quilt, but just kind of wanting these textiles to be joined and waving together.
Well, it's beautiful too, like the images you had of the flags, the way that the light can come through them because there's not that thickness, like
Yeah.
it's like the colors can really shine.
Yeah, and I liked working with a range of like weave densities in that way as well, because it'll change the way that it flies, and it'll change the way that light comes through, and I love especially the images of the flag right against the sky and having like more colors created through the blue of the sky kind of coming through the other colors. It was really neat.
That's such a beautiful and poetic presentation. Anita Cazzola, you said your art practice is sort of new. Can you tell a bit about your history? And thank you very much for sharing.
Oh, sure. So I've been like making art, since I was a young one. But I went to school at OCAD University in Toronto and studied sculpture and installation, and did a minor in material art and design, in the track of textiles. So I really, really liked having that sort of hybrid degree between a much more like conceptually based practice in sculpture and installation, and then having the textile, like the really intensive technical stuff coming from the textile. And so much, like basically everything in my work is related to textile processes and the poetry of their materiality. So I'm so grateful and appreciative that I could have that set up as part of my education. And afterwards, again, I did an amazing 2-week intensive natural dye course with Kathy and Amy and Brees at Haystack Mountain School of Craft. And so that's my like education, and that finished just a few years ago. So I've just been kind of making it up now and calling myself an artist, and finally feeling like I actually can without sounding funny. which is a nice feeling.
So funny that we've been talking about this, I feel like in a couple Feedback Friday episodes about embracing the fact that, there's no bad work or that you are an artist. Like, I mean, there's no definition of artist. So, I mean,
Yeah,
I've seen you as an artist since I met you. I mean, so yeah, don't doubt it. You are absolutely an artist.
thank you.
Okay, so is your project sponsored from the Canada Council or other government agency?
So currently it's not. I would love to keep working on it and get some funding through them. But right now it's funded through the city of Guelph. Their artist in residence program has a budget for the artist in residence every year. And so I'm using that budget for materials and paying collaborators to help me learn and do things together. Um, and there was also a small grant through the Guelph Arts Council that I received in the fall to help with like educational components. So kind of hiring some people to help me learn more about the science and the chemistry and things, which is such an honor.
Anita, do you have something on your site where people could donate if they wanted to help support your project?
Oh, no,
I just
not right now.
maybe, maybe there's people here who would definitely want to be doing that to help continue the, education for schools or for the community.
Wow, sure. Yeah, I can set that up for sure. I'm lucky to have a web
Yeah.
design background, so I can do that like later today.
Okay. What kind of feedback are you getting from the community and town officials on your reclamation projects?
Ooh, this is an interesting question. Overall, I want to preface it with people are being so kind, and I'm just so happy that you know institutions in my city are supporting this sort of work because it is I as I was applying especially for this residency I was thinking like I don't know if they want me to be sort of in a way criticizing the ways that things are being done with these spaces and also potentially like I might be trespassing on people's land, so I've been having to sort of adjust things a little bit to make sure that I'm not breaking too many rules and in that regard. And I have had some meetings with some folks from the city who are just wanting to make sure that like the plants that I'm harvesting aren't in danger at all, which I'm being sensitive to already. But it was great to chat with them, and they've offered some ID assistance as well, and um, encouraging prioritizing the invasive species where I can, especially in the more public facing realm. So I'll kind of have to see how it goes when I try things out. But with the dye plants of the week, they will probably be more on the invasive side. So we'll see what happens there.
Okay, I notice a loom in the background. Do you dye your woven fabrics?
Yes, actually, all of that work is actually installed downtown Guelph right now. Some indigo woven work that I've made, but you can see some images of that on my website. And throughout the summer, another part of this residency is going to be this like ongoing sort of woven timeline of dye plants. So I'll be dyeing the fabrics, but then I'll also have little skeins of different types of yarn that I'll be dyeing too. And then weaving them hopefully with the summer and winter weave structure for any weavers here, to try and like show different amounts of the color. There's this thing, if you want to get really into the technical, there's this polychrome summer and winter thing that you can do. I wish I had more of a technical language around this right now, but I'm still learning about it. But I'm hopefully going to try some wacky weave structure that'll help show a bunch of different colors, and there will be some over dyes to sort of get a big range of color. But the idea is to make just this long woven piece that will house all of the different dyes that I've worked with, and sort of chronologically throughout the summer. And something to note as well, I'm going to bookend my harvesting between the summer solstice and the fall equinox, so that it's like summer plants, and feeling nice about bookending it in a celestial event.
Well, that was like a celestial voice that you just. Whose work with plants or dyes is inspiring you right now?
Oh my goodness, so many people. I mean, this is such a hard question because there's just such a bounty. But I mean, I'm going to be honest, like Brees Honeycutt's work has been so amazing to interact with. And my friend Katama Murray, who some of you might know, her experiments have been really exciting to see with eco printing. I might have to get back to you on that and have a sort of a resource list put together or something. Another person that is in the Canadian world is Rachel McHenry, and she is she was one of my professors at OCAD University, and she's working with craftspeople around the world to bring naturally dyed, mainly like notions and like ribbons and threads and things, to everyone. So her business is called Botanica Tinctoria. I can send along a link, or if maybe Amy or Brees wants to find that. Anyway, she's doing great work, and it's exciting.
All right. Oh. All right. Sorry, I just lost that. Okay. Such a wonderful project. Thank you so much for sharing. When you say reclamation, Anita, do you mean anything other than leave it alone?
I'm not really sure I understand the question.
Maybe thinking about when you say reclamation, it's in quotes. You mean I guess I kind of understand what you're trying to say, Kathy, but maybe just give your definition of what reclamation means to you. If you to create a definition for your project using the word reclamation.
Right. So reclamation in this context isn't referring to me in any like active way. It's plants reclaiming spaces. So that's it's sort of what they will do regardless of like they don't need motivation to do it, they just do it. And so it's this, I mean, I don't want to use the word passive because that doesn't sound right, but it's this intrinsic reclamation work that plants are always doing, to regenerate themselves. I hope that answers your question.
I'm not sure, but it sounds like it was a great answer. I loved it. Is it possible that we just got to the bottom of our questions? Does anybody else have any other questions for yes? Like just a couple more minutes anyway, and then we're gonna go to talk about a couple other things.
I have another question.
Yeah, just Leslie, I got one right here.
Okay.
Let's see. You talked about the willow and what happened to it. I worked with the willow too. I have the feeling that the tannins have an effect on the fibers. Is that something?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. It's a similar like tannin rich plant. So yeah, so do you think like the high tannins might be contributing to any oxidization happening potentially? I'm not sure.
See, Holly's saying often reclamation in a more active way means removing invasive species and planting quote unquote pioneer species to repopulate the land. Is
Oh,
that a thought or just as a
mhm.
statement?
That's good to know. I really appreciate that, and I'm going to dive into that sort of etymology a little bit more.
Yeah, but I get it with the idea of botanical reclaiming, being allowed to spread out and take over those sad spaces that you were
Hmm.
to. All right. Do you do online classes?
At this point, I haven't. As a musician as well, throughout the pandemic, it's been a little bit like I've been a little bit hesitant to engage in the online class or concert world. So at this point, no, but maybe in the future.
I mean, you just had your first online concert, so
Yes, it's true.
yeah. Do you plant the plants or are they wild?
So the plants growing on the sites are like totally wild. I was mentioning about establishing a dye garden with these plants, so some seed saving might be happening, but any plants that I'm using are wild and in these spaces that are um, either about to be developed or have been left to their own devices.
See, Heidi wanted to know more about the oxidation of the colors, and thanks for those of you that are talking about tannins and all kinds of different things in chat with each other right now too.
Hmm.
Maybe talk more. I was so interested in that too. What was it, the willow or the
Hmm.
or yeah, like that oxidizing of the color out.
Hmm.
So it was
Yeah, it was like it was a lighter orange when I took it out of the dye pot, and then I kind of rested it on the side of the dye pot just to see what it would look like what it was looking like, and then I noticed it was starting to change color a little bit. So it was just like a darkening. It wasn't like with working with indigo where it goes from green to blue. So maybe oxidization might not even be the thing that's happening, but maybe it's just something else. I'm not too sure, but um, yeah, I definitely am going to find someone who knows more about that and figure that out, because I'm so interested to know what's happening there.
yeah, it's so interesting too with natural dyes in general. I mean, even like this shirt that I have on, which I think I dyed with Breeze Honeycutt.
Mhm.
Maybe, I don't know, or it's inspired by you for sure. But it has changed colors. I mean, a lot of the natural dyes do change colors. And when people say, is it light fast? Is it color fast? Well, it can change colors and actually surprise you with how rich the color can be or just different.
Mhm.
It's like a mood ring.
Yeah, and I mean, like, it makes so much sense to me because every plant is different. And so every natural dye bath is going to be different. And plants are always changing and evolving. And so I kind of love that our naturally dyed textiles are also probably going to change and evolve. And they kind of are like a living thing.
Okay. Well, looks like everybody is talking to each other and
Oh, fun.
sumac is a tannin. That was a question. Speaking of sumac as a tannin, are you
Mhm.
using it in place of, say, gallnut? And how do you gauge how much you use?
Yeah. So I again, my technical knowledge isn't enough to know exactly what would be required. But with the sumac, I used about 25% of the weight of fiber, um, and just fresh leaves and a few berries that were kind of dried from last year. And so that was sort of used as in place of like a gallow or whatever. Which what was the example that was given?
Um, let's see. Oh, gallnut. Let's see.
Walnut. Yeah, yeah. Or like I know kutch can be used as like a tannin, walnut, etc. So I'm curious to find more sources of tannin that are growing locally and seeing how that changes. but I think, I don't know why I was set on sumac as the one that I wanted to try, but I think I remember when I was at Haystack, I was asking Kathy all the time, so like, what plants can just be the mordant and that's it? And it was kind of like, oh, you kind of have to do some modifying as well, but
Yeah, that's definitely a big question that the community wants to ask. They want to use kind of what can they use at home
yeah.
that's a mordant instead of just always using alum. And then
Mhm.
the other is, there, yeah, the extracts or dyes that are also tannins. And I actually put one, there's a blog post up. There's like
Yeah.
10 dyes that you can also use or that are tannin rich or that are a mordant.
Mhm.
I'll make a note so I'll put that on your.
Yeah. I'm also curious to see what would happen if you were to do like a locally harvested tannin rich plant plus iron, and that as like the mordant, and then go from there. I mean, your colors will definitely be different, but I wonder if that would work. So I might try that too.
Love that, like in the chat, there's like rhubarb leaves, soy, like everybody's got
Mm.
different ideas of things.
Yeah. Well, oh, juniper berries. Apparently, like the ash from juniper berries or something. Maybe I should just go for it and try that this summer too. Um, yeah, there's so many different ones, but I'm glad everyone is on the same page, just wanting to have your own source of mordant.
Yeah, well, and that's the beauty of natural dyeing. You can just keep exploring and pushing yourself, and just when you think you know everything about everything, you don't. You have to, open your mind to like kind of learning about different parts of the process and yeah, ways you can be doing it kind of, be a little bit more self-sufficient with what you're doing. That's
Hmm.
part of it too.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to try was I think there's a plant called like soapwort,
Oh,
um, and it traditionally has been used to wash clothing, like and like gently wash textiles. So I was curious about using that to scour. I have no idea if it would do a good enough job. If anyone has tried that, please let me know.
like perfect for Madeline when we in a couple minutes when we have her unmute for picture of the week because we're talking about scouring and
Hmm.
done so many experiments and actually was a presenter for God, it was like a while back. I don't even know what episode it was, but it was Water Matters, Madders. So, but yes, soapwort. I was at Old Sturbridge Village and I came across one of those people who are dressed up in the colonial clothing. And she's
Hmm.
like, yay, maiden, come look at my garden. And I was like, you can just totally talk normal to me. You're freaking me out talking like don't. So, but she ended up, she showed me soapwort and talked about that because it foams up a little bit. But yeah, we just all will look forward to following your experiments and sign up for your newsletter to get these kind of was it botanicals of the week or like, is that
Dye
what
plant of the week.
plant of the week?
Yeah, the idea with the dye plant of the week, and this is again me wanting to do like a million things in one summer, but I really want to collect images of these plants that you find in weird, sad spaces, and coordinates if possible, so that I can make some sort of like active, like interactive map of dye plants that have been found in these
So
strange
that is a
places. So I mean, this is a dream that we'll see when it actually comes to fruition, but you're welcome to send me things and coordinates, and I could populate them on a map somehow.
That would be amazing. It's kind of like geocaching, if anybody's ever heard of geocaching. Yeah, it's like finding these little weird treasures that are tucked away in trees or on, like
Yeah,
whatever. Like,
geocaching is so fun.
yeah,
I did it a lot in high school. It was
I
fun.
did it with my kids, but yeah, like it was a lot of fun. But that could be really interesting. Even like indigo shade map, with rose,
Yeah.
that kind of a thing where you're plotting it out on a map.
Mhm.
Have your community beyond your immediate community just really being part and That would be cool. That's a good citizen science kind of a thing too.
Hmm.
Just because you don't have enough that you're doing, just start a citizen science natural dye map. But
Yes.
all right, Anita.
Oh,
Well, thank you so much for everything, for your song, for your poetry, for your beautiful words, for taking these kind of sad spaces on and making them beautiful. And I'm sure everybody here fully appreciates the work that you're doing as an artist.
thank you. Thanks everyone for being so present here with me.
Yeah, we're just gonna have a couple. We're gonna have picture of the week and just a couple little,
Yeah.
but then afterward, everybody will unmute, maybe be able to say a little something to you. But everybody's throwing me curveballs today. All of a sudden, everybody's gonna do it. Don't do it yet. Don't do it. Let's see. All right. So let's see. I've got some reminders. You can take a class with Kathy where you can dance, much like she was at the beginning of this, holding, you could hold natural dye things and dance in a natural dye gradient class that she and I will be together for in Seattle, August. I guess that's 24th. It's on the site under workshops. Also under workshops, there's still some Abu Bakr classes. We had put them up so long ago that there's a July, there's an August, but there's a 3-day online mineral mud dyeing workshop, which people love. An online 3-day indigo class that's really filling up. It might already be full, but there might be a couple spots in that one. And then there's a master class construction techniques where will be creating a strip cloth tunic, which is the most beautiful thing ever. I think we like all want to be wearing that tunic. Let's see. And then next week, we're going to be having Madeline Corbin. Madeline's a multidisciplinary artist living in Detroit, Michigan. Her research-based practice moves fluidly between drawing, writing, sculpture, textiles, and natural dyeing. Madeline will talk about the climate crisis as a crisis of color, and she will share pieces of her research and experiments that have inspired her artwork concerning the imminent loss of the color blue from our surrounding ecologies. We have this she sent me her book that we won't have, I don't think we can get in time to have for our site, but I will direct you to the Tattered Blue Library where it's being sold. Okay, and now picture of the
Week, 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 week,
Week,
week.
week,
yes,
week, week, week,
yes,
week,
it's
week, week,
that
week, 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 week.
time. You know what I like is that that Anita, you and Brees really wanted to do that, like one after the other. It was so weird, but it worked. Okay, Madeline, where are you? I see you, Madeline
Try
McGarity.
and unmute.
Okay, I'm gonna spotlight you.
Yeah.
Spotlight's on you. Whoa, and I gotta make sure I have your picture. Hold on.
Oh
Just
yeah, I didn't bring it.
yeah, I did. I did because it is picture of the week. And let's see, I'm going to share my screen and you can talk more about importance of scouring and mordanting. And yeah, so here's Madeline's picture, Cold and Deadly. So many cool projects to be had here. But why don't you talk about this picture or pictures?
Well, I got the hand woven textile from India from you guys with indigenous, like it's woven from indigenous cottons, which are like a whole other conversation, I feel like. But I've been trying to pull some more like water saving cotton materials into my tests instead of just getting sort of like conventional textiles. So yours was great. Thanks a lot. And I scour all my textiles, but there's not usually such a noticeable difference because a lot of the textiles I get, they're not like bleached. They've been treated somehow. They've already been like washed a little bit for you or something. And this one like really showed the incredible difference between a really thorough scour and the textile. Yeah, that's the water. It was really, really brown. Whenever water looks like this, I always hit it a second time. And then like the water from the second pot, you can reuse for the first scour of the next textile, you know? not to like, for scouring, I use prosopol, which is it's pro-chemical and dyes, biodegradable, more ecologically thoughtful sort of neutral detergent that they carry. And I use a bunch of soda ash because you need the pH reading of the pot to be fairly high for a scour of this type to work really thoroughly. And I boil it for at least an hour. But like one of those like chill boils, not like a crazy boil.
I like that. The chill.
It's got a name.
It's got a chill simmer.
Yeah, like it's like a
frothing at the edges, like just a gentle bubble simmer at the edges.
Boil, not a nutty one.
Yeah.
Because like, it always boils over no matter how high the water is. Always it boils over. Maybe that's just me, but
no, but it's really important why I thought this picture should be picture of the week, because here you have these beautiful natural fabrics, but almost all fabrics have something on them that's going to inhibit that color being on them. And it was really important to show this before and after shot here of what happened. It'll totally interfere with the color. And when people say light fast or wash fast, it's going to help with that too if you do things properly, like with the scouring process and then a mordanting process. So,
well, and then like if you finish your piece, I'm talking about cottons or linens here, because silk and wool have different, there's different ways to do this for all of them. If you boil silk and wool, you're gonna be really upset with the results. But you boil cotton and linen. If you want to like aggressively finish your textile at the end, you boil it. And if you don't scour in the beginning and then you go to finish your textile at the end and boil it, you'll probably end up with a pretty splotchy result, like an uneven result.
Yeah.
Because when you boil it at the end, you're opening up the fibers to sort of like, and you get rid of a little bit of the dinginess and stuff. But I really have to scour for my tests, because otherwise the prints, because I do mordant printing, the prints gather a much more intense background tone that's almost impossible to get rid of. Like the scouring is a huge step. It's just the most boring step. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Well,
I know some people like use bran and ferment it sort of on the fabric and let the bran like eat away the oils and stuff, but I really don't like the way fermented bran smells, so I don't do it.
Like a horse barn on your fabric, but
it's like, well, I don't want to like be gross, but it's kind of like barf. It smells like barf a little bit.
Great. That's a really great way to end Feedback Friday. We can just talk about barf a little bit.
But the soapwort's interesting.
Yeah.
I think that it contains surfactants, which, do the soap thing, but I think you'd still have to bump the alkalinity to make it have an impact. I don't know, you have to be careful with natural sources for soap, not technically soap, but because some of them are actually more dangerous. Like you have to be more careful with disposing of them because they have natural surfactants, and the surfactants aren't really something you want to like, you don't want to like get it into a body of water or something, because it ruins the surface tension of water, and it can be a little bit dangerous for certain ecosystems.
Yeah.
But it'd be cool to put some in a pot. It might make it easier to absorb better color from a dye. Sometimes people leave like, their neutral detergent a little bit like as a wetting agent. And I wonder if soapwort would perform that function.
Yeah. Well, we'll have to watch. Maybe you try it, or Anita can try it.
I do have some in my yard. I might as well just try it, right?
Yeah, do it. So I'll have your I'll be putting things about you too, kind of where to follow you, but I just unshared that. But it's Cold and Deadly on Instagram as Madeline. And I will put the post up from Water Matters. And I know that bandana on your head is totally your textile too. I can tell from seeing it online. Yep.
It's an old one. It's fared really well.
I love it. Looks good. And you can learn more about the printing that Madeline is doing too, as part of all your different experiments that you do, but like the beautiful work that you're doing. But But thank you. Thanks for being our picture of the week.
Thanks for having me.
Week.
Thanks, you guys. Thank
Week. You didn't say it was going to be after, Amy. It was-
you have to be ready for all the curveballs, Honeycutt.
Okay.
All right. So if you guys want to unmute yourselves and say hello and goodbye, then that would be fantastic. Because Madeline's here and Anita's here. Let's see.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Madeline and Anita.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Bree.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Happy.
Thank you. Bye, Kathy.
Oh, Cara, yeah, look
The
at you.
hot day.
Oh, God, Suzanne.
We had to go incognito
Kathy, babe.
because we said, oh, if I put my name on there, she'll know.
Yeah, you guys threw me for
I used
It was
marigold.
pretty
mix.
disruptive, wasn't it?
It was great.
It was awesome.
It's awesome. We needed that.
I have a really great class here. They're so amazing. They've done such amazing work. It's just like,
Is today's your last day at Shake Rag?
today's the last day, and we have we do the class walkthroughs. So we're setting up for all the exhibits right now. And so all the pieces that everyone was flapping around were some of their pieces that they're going to exhibit.
Anita and Brees are like, we know what that's like right now.
Yeah.
So intense.
It's so fun.
Yeah, it is fun.
Yeah.
It is fun.
Did I say thank you to my amazing co-host, Brees Honeycutt?
Oh yeah, Brees. Hey Brees, good job.
Thank you.
Good job, Breeze.
My pleasure.
Oh, that's a beautiful quilt.
And I'd like to see that Diane Becker decided to show up even though she had something else. So sometimes people's schedules are packed and they're like, I don't care. I'm going to reschedule it around Feedback Friday.
That's right.
Thank you.
I love the idea of you saving spaces. Although I don't know how you're going to feel about when they build in there.
Yeah, I mean, there's some that have hope still. The one in particular that I am working with there, it's pretty much gonna happen at this point. There's been a lot of pushback by the community that has not been heard all the way. But there are some other spaces that I'm going to be working with that will that do have some hope. I attended a council meeting the other day and delegated to try and designate one of these areas in Part 5 of Ontario's Heritage Act. So if that means anything to anyone.
Do you take the plants with you? Or do you?
Well, yeah, that's the thing about doing saving the seeds. I would love to try to keep these plants going elsewhere. I have a few of them. Well, they grow everywhere anyway. So some of them are just growing in my yard anyway, but I'm trying to save some seeds, but I have to cold stratify a lot of them because a lot of native plants need to be cold stratified if you're planting the seeds.
Whatever that means.
Oh, basically either plant them in the fall or put them in your freezer. There's so many different ways. I don't really know too much about it, but putting them in your freezer for 2 months, just so that they experience a hard cold before being planted. It'll help them germinate. So many things that I'm just scratching a little surface of learning how to do.
Thanks, Anita.
Bye-bye.